Play.
Hey, welcome to Food Chat, a monthly show that we explore different areas, tell about some of the upcoming programs that really foster and help the horticulture, the food, the aquaponics, the many different sources that allow we as human beings to better understand where our food sources come, where our training programs are available to increase productivity. Today, it's our fortunate experience to speak with Tom Harker. Tom Harker is a research assistant at the Ohio State University South Centers, in which he has been working with a number of different individuals, specifically working in the vegetable production and marketing of different Ohio crops. And I'll be quite frank with you, I don't know that much about the different horticultural programs, and Tom is a really good resource on helping all of us understand what products are coming up. Specifically, he's going to be talking about the Hops Conference, a bus tour, and a trade show that's scheduled March 23rd and 24th. So I want to welcome Tom to Food Chat.
Thanks, Patrick.
So Tom, for the listening audience, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been with the university for 23 years. Been a research assistant the whole time, focusing on horticulture crops, fruits, vegetables, some flower species.
And herbs.
And
I
herbs,
understand about
yes.
herbs. Wow. So when you're working with the different horticultural crops, etc., the ones that I know are basically corn, soybeans,
right.
Different things. But I understand you're very actively involved in many of the other kinds of products
Yes.
that help the economy and help small farmers get involved in.
Yes, yes. Yeah, here we focus on many different crops: strawberries, pumpkins, hops, which we were going to talk about here in a little bit, blueberries, grapes, different non-typical agronomic crops.
But that farmers can look at and raise in our area and maybe some of the other areas throughout the United States.
Yes, yes.
Huh, very good. So you were mentioning about the Hops Conference, and you were mentioning a little bit ago about farmers undertaking a new kind of crop because of the microbreweries have really taken off in Ohio.
Yes.
And that one of the areas that they always look for is hops. And so the Ohio State University South Center has been very active in understanding better how to grow hops.
Correct.
And so you're talking a little bit about a upcoming hops conference, and I believe you brought some pictures.
I do have some. Yes. We've got a picture here showing, that hops are not a new product in Ohio. They've been around before Prohibition.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Back before Prohibition, hops were grown widely throughout Ohio. Between disease, insects, and then Prohibition, hops did basically fade out in the state as a crop. We got as we said, the bus tour coming up in March. To leave our facility in Piketon and proceed to go visit a couple growers' farms, one being an organic farm, the only organic farm in Ohio, and then going to another farm that has a processing facility as well on it.
I noticed that you have a picture. Is this what it looked like when they were growing hops a long time ago?
I would say it could be possibly. They were grown very similar. I don't know about with the more Native American looking pictures. But I do know the picture with the lady there working, that is a typical picture from early years of hop.
Wow, wow. And I noticed the long poles. Well, you're going to show in a little bit how hops is grown.
Yes, yes, we can do that. We'll cover some different topics that we got going on throughout the conference that if individuals are interested in, maybe they should look into registering for the conference.
Now isn't hops an easy crop to grow?
I wouldn't say that. No, it's pretty labor intensive at times.
Really? Oh.
Yes.
And so you're showing some different pictures here.
Right. What we got here is a hop rhizome. The hops are not grown from seed, really. They're a rhizome. So you plant the rhizomes and they grow from that, and they're a perennial crop.
So when you say rhizomes,
Yes.
help me to put that in my
It's
simple
kind of
language.
like it's a root, more or less, kind of like a potato. A
Oh,
potato's a type thing.
Oh, okay, all right. So that comes off of a former plant?
It grows on the root system, yes.
Oh, okay, all right. And so you plant that. So what are we doing here?
Well, here it is showing us planting a few back years ago when we started this trial. As you see, we have some black fabric down. We used that as a weed barrier, as a form of weed control early on in the production system. Weeds are a major pest in the crop, especially as you remove that fabric. So one of the topics that will be covered at the hops conference is weed control strategies in a hop
okay.
yard.
All right.
This is just one way we had took some stuff we knew from other research on blackberries and just kind of used it in our hop production.
Uh-huh. Huh, interesting. And so that cover, I would imagine, is that on throughout the whole processing time, or is it just when it's just starting?
Well, we put that down actually before we set the post. We have a machine that will lay that for us. It throws up kind of a little raised bed to elevate the hops so they're not down on poorly drained soils.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Let's see, so we're going to be talking about building trellis at this conference. I think I have here somewhere some pictures of that as well, Patrick.
Now, when you say trellis, do hops, aren't they sort of a plant or an herb that you just plant in the ground? Do they need to?
Yeah, they grow up to 20 feet tall.
Oh.
During the warm, early like June, Patrick, they could grow a foot a day.
Huh. Wow.
6 inches to a foot a day. They're just a prolific grower early in the season. So by the summer solstice, they'll reach 20 feet.
Really? And so where is the fruit or the hops, what do you call
The cones?
Yeah, cones.
Yes, it's actually the flower of the plant, but it's a cone, and that's the finished product. That's what we want when we're done. That's the harvestable crop.
Oh, okay. So is that the top or the bottom?
It grows from about 4 feet up the plant clear to the top.
Oh, wow.
Here's a picture of early growing. This is, in the spring, we'll say probably April. The shoots are coming. So that's before any strings are dropped. You'll drop some string later on in the process to train those up. But early on, you cut those off the first flush. You'll cut them off.
So this is before you put the post in, right?
The post should be in by this time.
Oh, okay.
And in that picture, it's not showing posts, but they probably are there.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Oh, interesting.
So this is a picture of us dropping the strings to train the hops, and then the hops will grow up that string throughout the growing season. So by, like I said, the summer solstice, they'll have reached that top cable there.
Oh, okay. So when you say string, you're tying it on the leads.
We'll tie the string to the cable that's on the trellis system at the top
Okay.
of the trellis, and then we pin that down to the ground.
Okay, and so the hops follow the strings. They go
Yes.
straight up.
Once you have to train them to begin with,
Oh,
but once
okay.
you start them, they'll climb their way all the way to the
Oh,
top.
that's interesting.
Here's a picture of the crew training the hops up the plant. You can see how they're growing up. That's probably midway through June by that point.
Oh, wow.
I think that one had fell down, was retying it. Here's pictures of a hop harvest,
Huh.
where growers actually bringing them in. That'll be one of the topics at the conference. Will be harvest, when to harvest, how to properly harvest, demonstrating different machines. I think there's going to be 2 different harvesters here to be demonstrated
I see.
for participants to see.
So when they harvest it, do they cut the complete plant off?
Yes, we'll cut the plant at the
Okay.
cable, and then we'll also cut it down at the ground,
Okay.
bring it on a trailer. There's different units. This one happens to be a unit that they're bringing it inside, so that'd be an indoor harvester.
Okay.
So right here's different types of harvesters. You see that one's a more stationary unit that could be put inside of a building, so that would
I
be
see.
where they're bringing them in. I would assume that's a wolf harvester there. Those come out of Germany. They're shipped on barges over here. They're split in half and shipped over and then welded back together on site.
So if I wanted to grow, I don't know, do you say acres or lines or rows? But if I wanted to grow a row, when would I start this process?
Well, you want to start planning well ahead, a year in advance, to
Okay.
get your weeds under control, to start talking to brewers and finding out what actual hop cones they want.
Oh, okay. So there are different kinds.
There's many different varieties, Patrick, and each beer has its specific combination of hops that they use. Not every brewer uses the same hops.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So let's suppose I went to a brewery and they said, we would like this kind of hops. So would I start in the spring, the fall? When would I prepare the ground?
You would want to start in the spring.
Spring?
Ideally, you would want to be planting your rhizomes by late April, early May.
Okay. And where would I get these rhizomes?
There's different providers. You want to make sure they're certified disease-free.
Okay.
There's different rhizome places. There's some places in Ohio actually that are raising plug plants that you can plant. So they've took rhizomes and started plug plants, and they are inspected and certified disease-free. So then you can just plant the actual plant and not wait for the rhizome to grow.
Okay. So in springtime, I would be planting the rhizomes.
Yes.
Then, when would what would be my next step then? What would I expect?
As far as planting the crop.
Would I then put in my posts, or would I?
Well, if you're going on the landscape fabric,
Okay.
you'll want to plant in there. So you'd be planting, and then after you got planted, you would want to set your post,
Okay.
start building your trellis system,
Okay.
and then that way you can start stringing them as your crop grows.
I see. So that would be during the summer months, or just still the spring?
I would try and have that done spring.
Okay.
If worst case scenario, you can put your post in after your crop starts growing.
Okay.
I guess ideally it might be nice to have your post and everything in place when you plant.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
In a perfect world.
Okay. And so it would grow. I think you had a picture there of a plant that was real tall.
Yes, we do. Here's.
And how long did it take for that plant to get?
To get that tall?
Yes.
That's probably, I'm going to say that's a June picture, early June.
Really?
I would say so, yes.
Huh.
Maybe late May, early June.
So in June, I would have that. When would this be ready to be harvested?
We start harvest typically in August.
In August.
There's a whole process that you have to go through. There's different qualities you want to see in your hop in order to know that it's ready to be harvested.
I see.
Some of the major factors are hop lupulin, which is in this picture here. This is a hop cone that is split in half, and the yellow substance is what we call lupulin. That's the oils. It's what gives the
flavor?
The flavor, yes. It'll give it its bittering or floral characteristics, whatever. Different hop cones have different characteristics that they add to each beer.
Interesting. And it's my understanding that in the whole process that it's growing, it uses a lot of water. Is that correct?
They do. Irrigation is a major important piece of the puzzle. They when they're growing the foot a day, they recommend 8 inches of rainfall per acre.
Wow.
Fertigation is very important. The irrigation is a source of putting water on. If people are familiar with growing other vegetable crops, they know irrigation is used, and we fertigate and supply nutrient as well through that system. That's a topic that will be discussed at the hops conference, how to build your own fertilizer injector. There'll also be injectors that you can buy, showing those as well. There'll be a specialist here helping you design
very good.
systems.
Very good. I know that the hops people have a variety of different supportive groups, and I know that they attended prior hops training programs where they were available, and I noticed that from start to finish, there seems to be a lot involved. It's just not a matter of going to your yard and planting out.
It's a very labor-intensive crop. That's one reason we're wanting to show the different harvesters that there is, just because, as this picture shows, hand harvesting, you might be able to get away with it early on, but once you start getting into a more mature crop, it's just unfeasible to hand harvest. You can't.
So what is he doing?
The plants have been cut down from the field, and they're actually sitting there pulling each individual cone off of the plant to process. So that's one reason why we're wanting to show the different harvesters. There is some harvesters in the state. This is a harvester that you could take directly to the field, so you can cut the bines in the field and begin to harvest there. This machine is out of New York. It's a machine that we also have here at this facility. It'll be one of the ones we'll be demonstrating at the hops conference.
Years ago, they used to have farms used to grow tobacco.
Yes.
As a sort of a supplementary kind of income for farming. And since the tobacco industry has really changed in the United States, no longer are farmers finding it feasible or finding it financially to grow. And so I'm assuming that hops is one of those plants, those diversified plants that can also help other farmers grow different things.
Yes, yes. Hops, it's a high demand, lots of money leave this state to buy hops out of Washington and Oregon. So what we want to do is just be able to keep some of that money locally here in Ohio.
Well, that makes sense. And a typical farm in growing hops, is it 1 acre, 2 acres, or what are you finding?
A lot of people start out with just an acre,
Just an acre?
and to get their feet wet, which that's a big undertaking, 1 acre
Yeah.
of hops, and then they grow from there if they see that it's working for them.
I know that you and Brad and a number of others have been very actively involved in the research at Ohio State University Cell Centers. And I know that you're able to do research, but the research that you do primarily is to benefit the farmers in the optimal kind of growing. Is that correct?
Yes, we want to come up with the best methods in which to grow that crop to give the individual farm the best opportunity to be profitable.
And just out of curiosity, when people say research, they're thinking genetics.
Yeah.
But I don't think the research that you're involved in is really in genetics.
No. We we look at different varieties. We as I mentioned all those crops before, we are putting out some new research this spring. One of the crops we're going to be looking at, we're going to be planting pawpaws
Very good.
in 2 locations, one here at Piketon and then also on a research farm in Columbus, looking at approximately 20 different varieties of pawpaws.
You know, the pawpaws have some unique features, and I'm not sure if you have a good background on the pawpaws, but you know, some of the farming industry, when they are growing pawpaws, they're getting some additional benefits.
Right. Yeah, the one reason we're looking at it, it ties in with the hops. Brewers are actually making pawpaw beer.
Really?
So that's another reason we're looking at to tie the two together. There's just a huge demand right now for pawpaws, whether it be the actual fruit, the seed, just there's a huge demand.
Now, are pawpaws a native kind of fruit?
It is native in Ohio. I have done enough reading on it to know that it's not native to all counties in Ohio, but it is pretty well widespread across the state.
And so, what you're saying is those farms that are growing hops are also looking at growing pawpaws.
They could as well. It'd be another tie-in as they market to brewers.
Oh, okay, all right. And it's my understanding that prior to the research that Ohio State University Cell Centers had done, there weren't too many farms in Ohio that were really actively pursuing hops.
No. There was only a few, maybe an acre or 2 planted in Ohio at the time we started doing this research, and now it's grown by leaps and bounds. I don't have a good idea.
I had
We're
heard,
at 30 to 40 acres
Yeah.
probably across the state now.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I know that the breweries, the microbreweries, that has been an industry that has just grown in Ohio.
Yes, it's booming. That grows every year.
And so the need for hops is increasing.
Right. The need's not going to go away anytime soon.
That's interesting. And so again, we're looking at the Hops Conference. It's how many days?
It's 2 days, both
2 days?
Friday and Saturday.
And it's March 23rd and 24th.
Yes.
And again, some of the topical areas include.
Oh, there'll be. We'll be looking at controlling and managing insects in your hop yard. Mobile hop dryers. We'll have.
Mobile hop dryers.
Yes. So you got to dry your hops, and here is a picture that I got along with me of just, this one's actually inside of a building, but you got to spread your hop cones out to dry them, so to 8% moisture is where they need to be when you're finished. So you take them out of the field at about 70% moisture, so you got to bring them down to 8. So you bring them down to your 8% moisture, and then they need to be pelletized.
Now, are you saying that What the oil needs to be dried, or
The whole cone, the cones
cone,
themselves,
oh.
and the oil's in there, it dries down
Oh.
as well. But yes,
Okay.
the whole cone needs to dry down, and then it can be pelletized. So there's some guys that have built dryers and trailers that they could take around the farmers
Oh,
who do
really?
not have
Oh.
that capability on their farm.
So you were saying, some of the other topical areas?
Oh, we got the weed. We're going to talk about dealing with weeds in your hop yard. We're going to talk about, the handling process. They have to be cooled after harvest. They have to be kept in a cool space, no moisture until they can be pelletized. We're going to talk about fertilization and irrigation design. And of course the bus tour, to get to go out and actually be on the farms, talk to a couple guys that are doing it if you're...
Oh, okay. So the bus tours, I believe, are right in our vicinity.
Right, it's going to be within, I think, an hour or two from Piketon.
Okay, all right. And you also have a trade show.
Yes, there'll be different vendors there. Anything from selling hop poles to hop trellising needs to fertilizer, chemical, probably a harvester company or two will be there.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's March to the 23rd, 24th. Is there a cost to this?
Yes, it's $125. Also, there'll be a banquet on Friday night. After the bus tour, there'll be a banquet, and that's a $40 cost per person to attend the banquet.
Some people look at a standalone with the cost, but let's compare apples to oranges if you want to. 2 days in which you bring a lot of different expertise, a lot of different knowledge, a lot of different research going into it. If you split that up into 2 days without the meal, you're looking at about $60.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of material that's disseminated, and a lot of material that people can walk away with. And usually each day there's, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours?
Yeah, of getting education. Then there's breaks, and talking to other people in the industry is invaluable information to talk to them, see how they do things as well.
And really the program is just recouping whatever the expenses are.
Correct.
For the bus tour and
the bus tour, bringing speakers in.
So it's really not much of a cost.
Correct.
And I know that I've had a chance to look at prior conferences, see all the different people, and it's well done. You do.
They do an excellent job of putting this together to give the attendees the biggest bang for their dollar.
Again, we're talking with Tom Harker. Tom Harker is the research assistant at The Ohio State University South Centers. Tom works with Brad Bergerford and a number of other individuals in the horticulture department. And hops is one of those foods, semi-food, that farmers are taking advantage of and being able to grow and bring in the financial stability. Tom, any last final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the listening audience?
Well, I just encourage people, if they are interested in trying hops on their farm, to attend this conference and either get talked into it or talked out of it. So $125 beats a bunch of money invested and lost. You're
absolutely correct. Again, I want to thank everyone for listening. Behind the scenes, we have Dwayne Rigsby, who is manning the phones, the TV, the different kinds of contraptions. We want to thank him. We also have behind the scenes Sarah Swanson. She's also an individual that helps with these conferences. I'm Patrick Tangle, and in regards to Food Chat, thank you for listening. Hey, welcome. Hey, welcome to Food Chat, a monthly show that we